Welcome to Forging a Life podcast with Coach Christine Clark. Forging a Life is a Sunglow transformation production aired on Transformation Talk Radio and all your favorite podcast platforms. If you own a business, have a side hustle, desire to make the leap into self-employment, or just love human interest stories, Forging a Life podcast is for you. Christine Clark is an internationally certified transformational life coach. She is the coach for your entrepreneurial life, and these are her people. Jump into the fire with those forging success on their own terms with courage, tenacity, and resilience. These are men and women you could easily meet on the street in your own community. Gain wisdom, insight, knowledge, and inspiration each episode as these business owners get transparent with Coach Christine Clark, sharing their passions, challenges, and origin stories. This is Forging a Life.
Hello and welcome to Forging a Life. I am Coach Christine Clark, and today I have with me Danita Sajous. Danita is a dear friend, a longtime coaching peer, and I am just totally delighted to have her with me today. Danita does rapid transformation therapy as well as she is a transformational life coach and combines the two to work magic and make some really beautiful changes for her clients. Very, very powerful. Danita, I was just thinking back to when we first went through our original coaching training, and that was a little over 5 years ago. What a trip it's been.
Yes, I love it. I love it. First of all, thank you for allowing me on your podcast show. I'm super excited. Transformation lives in my blood as I get people's life back on track. Yeah, Christine, we met about 5 years ago at a coaching certification program, and we hooked up arms and we never left each other. I always say it's because of you, with all the practice coaching that we had to do to embody the actual feeling of being coached as a student first, that led me to where I am to get today. So I'm grateful for you as my partner, as my peer, as we help the world transform. So it's been a journey.
I don't remember that part, but I do remember the hours that we spent practicing and getting, and like you said, embodying the coaching, and just what a trip it's been. And the retreats and master coach reconnections, and it's just been lovely to be able to come back and see you again, work with you again in those group settings, and watch your growth and just marvel at what you have done in your life.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
I see the steps you've taken and the expansion that has happened in your life, in your work. And I'm just in awe of that. What was significant? What is significant as far as what got you to where you are now?
Yeah, thank you for that, Christine. Yeah, it's been a journey. And when I first found this thing called personal development, I was in direct sales and met my coach on a stage at one of my direct sales events, and went to a little $20 workshop. I remember the day, and I sat there and he did a little exercise. I just started bawling. It was about success, but knowing that success is not about money and trophies and cars. It was more about what's really going on with Danita. I went to all his coaching events. He had 5-day events. And at that time I was coaching women in direct sales and really trying to figure out who this chick called Danita was, and said, wow, if this could help me, then I must be able to help someone else. I learned by that and got intrigued with personal development through my huge breakthroughs. One of the major breakthroughs was this idea of being the perfect daughter in my daddy's eyes. And I struggled with loving my dad so much, but also being so afraid of him because when I was 9 years old, I came back from vacation and my older sister was gone. And my dad had asked her to leave because she chose a different life. And I never got to say goodbye. And here's a 9-year-old little girl wondering if I can be abandoned from the family. And so I spent the rest of my life, Christine, trying to be the perfect daughter in my daddy's eyes. And it cost me. It cost me fear around him. It cost me not being my true self around him, pretending that everything was perfect in my life when it wasn't. And I came to the point where I couldn't anymore. And he became my weight. He became a 6,000-pound weight on my chest. And at that time, I had hired my coach, and every session, my dad would come up. And so I decided to write a letter to him to really release my emotions of what I was angry at, what I desired from him, what I was afraid of. And it was really a letter to write myself, to release him from me. But I decided to fly to New York City to read it to him.
That's huge. You know, because, yeah, that letter is for you, and for you to make the choice to go and read it to him is huge. There's so much at risk there.
Yeah. At risk of being abandoned from a dad. Meanwhile, let's be clear, at that time I was 48 years old.
Right.
Mortgage, I was independent, but a woman, a child, I was still that 9-year-old.
Right.
Wanting to be loved, and he loved me, wanting to be approved or not unchosen by my dad.
Right.
Those memories run deep in my bloodstream.
Do you know what pushed you or what had you make that choice? Because I love the letter, the Told Truth letter, and I've done that often for my own release. Never, ever intending to share it with someone. And for you to make that choice and fly to New York to share that with your dad, what was in your head?
Yeah, what was in my head? I'll tell you exactly, because I remember being on a coaching call with my coach. I was sitting in my car. It might have been 15 below zero. I was living in Chicago at the time. I did the Total Truth letter. It worked a little bit of motion, but it didn't work enough for me to be released. I said, I think I have to read it to him. And when those words left my mouth, I shocked myself. And then I said, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. And my coach said, what will happen? Like fear just took over my entire body, because here's my Superman that may abandon me, right? And so he said, what will happen? Will you lose an arm? Will you lose your sight? Will you stop walking? Because the fear almost felt like I was going to pass out. And I said, none of the above. And my next trip to New York, I remember it. I had 3 days there with him. And every time his wife would be like, I'm going to take your dad to get a haircut, I'd be like, no, you can't go. This may be the time where I read the letter. I waited to the umpteenth hour of the third day. Mm-hmm. I went in and I said, Dad, I got something to tell you. I want to read a letter to you. And he says, of course, sit down. And he was sitting on his little lazy boy. I sat on the ottoman and I just started to bawl, because I had carried this fear around being unchosen by him for, let's say I was 48. So for 39 years, I carried this fear of this is the risk I'm going to take to be set free. And as I read it, I'm angry that it hurt me when I had all these sentence stems. All I ever wanted was, I take accountability for, and thank you for. And when I said thank you, after I said everything I wanted to say, I said, thank you for being my tooth fairy and finding the quarter behind my pillow every time I lost a tooth. Thank you for being my hide and go seek partner, dodging through the cars, the parked cars in Manhattan as we would walk down the street. Thank you for stopping at Chock full of nuts every morning on the way to drop me off to school or get a donut. Like, I went back. And after I couldn't even see the paper at this point because I was bawling so badly because I was about to face my biggest fear. I was facing my biggest fear. He looked at me and he said, cocotte, which is in French like my dear. He said, I never knew I had a hold on you. As of today, I release you. You can adopt 5 children or 5 dogs. Go live your life.
Wow.
And that was the point where I felt about 6,000 pounds of weight released from my shoulders. And he said, can you do me a favor? Can you give me a copy of that letter? Because I didn't know that you remembered all the things I did when the thank you part came and what I appreciate you for and what I love you for, like being his tooth fairy. He didn't even know that I remembered those things. And most parents will not hear their flowers while they're on earth. And I gave my dad his flowers to give him a stamp to know that, Daddy, you did a good job. And after that, I left New York, came back home to Chicago at the time. And the next time I called him, Christine, he almost was unrecognizable. This joie de vie, this joy of life, because he was ailing. And all of a sudden he had a spirit of joy in his voice that I hadn't heard for a long time. I contacted my coach and I said, oh my God, I'm free, I did it. He said, not only did you free yourself, but you freed your dad.
Right.
And when we free ourselves, we free the others and we give them permission to live again.
Absolutely.
And it was probably the biggest gift. There's so many more stories of breakthroughs with relationships, but that was a big one.
That was huge. Yeah.
And so before he died, I was at peace.
Yeah. And that is beautiful, Danita.
As I get emotional again, right?
Right. Yeah. Because that lives in you. The courage to share the letter, the response that you got, the release for you and the release for your father. Like you said, giving him his flowers while he's still here on earth, remembering all the wonderful things he did that were just part of your life. Yeah, that takes courage. It takes a lot of internal work. And in the work that I do, what I know is that you have to go through those deep experiences that are scary, that are painful, in order to be able to live full out, to have that joy. What I see for you is that because you've done that work, you're able to give that to the people that work with you because you've been there, you've done it.
Yeah. There's a big piece in transformation about being the student in the work. And I always tell new coaches, how dare you ask someone for money when you haven't done the work yourself? You have to embody it. You have to experience. You have to have certainty that I know this works. And if you're human, it can work for you too. And so this self-investment in yourself for personal development is huge.
And to have the courage to do your own work, to, go through the processes, to face whatever the demons are, whatever the obstacles are, and do the work to get through them. And then you've got it, what we say, in embodiment. Not only are you have the skills and the tools, but having been on the other side of the tools, you know without a doubt what can be done as far as transforming someone else's lives, because your life's been transformed. There's nothing more powerful than that.
And I would add to that, Christine, transforming as I
Yes.
still transform, right? The
Right.
work is never done.
Right. It's yeah, that's the other one. It's never done. It's never done. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about some of your techniques and what you do.
Thank you for asking. Children are my love. I already knew that. I was a Sunday school teacher. I love the young babies, 3 to 8 years old. They just fill me with joy. And I watched a video, a friend showed me a video of a woman out of London, Marissa Peer, who developed this technique called rapid transformational therapy. In the video I watched, she was hypnotizing children, whether they were having issues of anger or bedwetting or achieving tests or anything. And I go, wow, that looks amazing. When I researched, actually, I didn't research it. I won't lie. I just was intrigued and I signed up.
Yep.
And it was because I don't research, you guys. I just have an intuition and I jump in with both feet.
There you go.
So I signed up. She was her first time in the US 3 years ago, went to Santa Monica for 15 days. Hadn't taken her online course. A lot of the students there had taken her online course, and I didn't take her online course. I just showed up. And I had been doing coaching for quite a while, and this was just a new modality that I was curious about. And my intent was to work with children. And so I went, I graduated, I got both my certificates to be a practitioner. I went into business very quickly. And the way that the rapid transformational therapy happens is we live on earth with 10% of our brain. That's our conscious brain. The other 90% is locked up. And what's locked up is the events and occurrences and what was said to us and our habits and our patterns that happen between the imprint age of 0 and 7 years old. And that's when 80% of our beliefs get created. Then another 10% get created from 8 to 18. And then another 10% from 18 to death. So the majority of our habits, what we think about ourselves, our self-esteem, the stories we made up, happen between the ages of 0 and 7. So in hypnotherapy, I open up the vault of the 90%, right? And the mind is super, super brilliant. And we go back to the scene, place, and time that started this issue of anxiety, depression, self-esteem, concentration. And we ask the brain to download the scene that occurred that started this belief. And it goes back. I had one client, Christine, go back to a scene and she said it was dark. And I said, well, where are you? And she said, I'm in the womb of my mother. Wow. And I said, what's going on the count of 3, 2, 1, your ears are wide open. What do you hear? And she goes, she's in the doctor's office. And she goes, oh no, not another child. I have 2 girls at home. And from that point on, she remembered not trying to get in the way of her parents because she felt like she was a mistake. She was kind of like this people pleaser. I call it caretaker of the family, and didn't want to get in the way, wasn't using her voice, self-esteem low, super brilliant because she figured she'd achieved to fill the self-esteem cup, but that didn't work. And so she came to me. And so the scenes are very interesting. They may be conscious scenes that you remember, but a lot of the time they're going back to 2 years old, 3 years old. They're sitting on the kitchen floor, or they just woke up from a nap and they're in their crib and they can hear their parents outside the door, but no one's coming for them. So they make it mean that I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. No one cares about me. And this happens subconsciously, super, super young. So I go take my clients back to a time, a place, event where this whole issue got started. And then we go back and we figure out the 3 scenes that we go back to and how that's showing up in their life today. We call it daisy chaining. And you'll see the patterns, whether they're 25 or 55, the patterns still remain. And they get to connect the dots. And then we reprogram the brain, the neuroplasty of the brain, to create the life that they want. So I ask them questions like, what would life be like without anxiety and depression? What would you be doing, feeling, and experiencing in this space? And the more detail they give me, the subconscious mind absorbs it. The brain becomes very suggestible to everything that I'm saying. And at the end of the therapy session, I create a transformational recording for them, a customized one that deletes the old beliefs and puts in the new life. They listen to it every night. They self-hypnotize themselves every night for 30 days. And they reprogram the neuroplasty of the brain. I just hung up with a young lady today. She's 20, anxiety, depression. Her self-esteem went from 2 to 9 in 7 days. Her self-confidence, her motivation, just catapult. And then what I do after that is I meet with them 7 days later, and I use my NLP skills to hear what's different and solidify the new beliefs. And then we meet again for another 30 minutes, 30 days later. I do this at the beginning with my coaching clients, whether they're coaching with me for 3 months or 6 months, and just for the RTT hypnotherapy. It's rapid, it's powerful, I call it magical, and it works.
Beautiful. When I introduced you, I said magical. And I thought, is that right? It's like, yeah, that's right. That is right.
It is.
So tell me what kinds of transformations that you've guided people through, because we know that the answers lie within each of us, and the work you're doing is very powerful. Are there sessions, are there transformations that have happened that make your heart sing more than others? Have there been times when it's taken your breath away?
Yes. So I was coaching a client one time for NLP coaching, transformational coaching, and the subject of her daughter kept coming up. And her daughter was 15 years old, high anxiety, depressed, in and out of institutions. She started cutting herself as well. The doctors had given up. And I don't know, God put on my heart, help this baby. And so I said, after our coaching session, I said, let me see your young daughter. And so we talked for a little bit, super articulate, super brilliant, but now she's being homeschooled because the anxiety had gotten so high that she couldn't go outside. So here's a little girl trapped in her room, a teenager trapped in her room. Her mother had to take leave of absence from work. She's a single mom trying to support her, and it was consuming her life. I talked to her for a little bit and told her what I do. I sent her a little video of what I do, and I asked her if she was interested. She goes, absolutely, because what I'm doing is not working. The drugs, the therapy, all these other things. And it doesn't mean that therapy doesn't work, but we needed to get to the root cause of why she was feeling this way. And children transform extremely quickly because they've seen less. They've been through less. It doesn't discount what they've been through, but they've seen less.
Yeah, they have less layers on top of the original experience. Right?
Exactly, Christine, exactly. And so we did hypnotherapy together, and she did videos every day for me, and I could see the change. This was a girl that if she went to the movies with her mom, she would have to know when the movie started, when the movie ended, how many steps to get back home. You couldn't stop for ice cream. She wanted to control her external environment. We did it in 30 days, Christine. She was 15 at the time, taking college courses. She was now going to football games. Now she's speaking on stage about mental health in teens. She's a spokesperson. She's been written up health magazines. She's super social now. And the mother keeps texting me, thank you for giving my daughter her life back.
Oh.
that was probably the biggest heart, because I always wanted to work with kids, and I do work with the children in the adult. And I've had delicious adult stories too, but the ones that pierce my heart are the babies, because if I can catch them early, they won't be so jacked up as adults.
Beautiful. And I can hear it. I can hear it in your voice for this girl and her transformation, and huge, from not even going out to being an advocate and speaking on stage. That's beyond a 180. That's right. That's a whole new trajectory in life for her. Thank you for sharing that.
And I want to add, Christine, like people are like, oh my God, thank you. And it's not me. And when people say, can you help me? I said, I can't help you, but your brain can. Trust the process and it'll set you free. Like the person with the problem has the answer.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I've been working with Lisa Nichols, who's a big motivational speaker in the personal development realm. And she asked me 2 years ago if I would do these women retreats with her around the world. And first of all, I was super honored. I did become a coach under her company, as Christine as well, invited me to do these retreats with her. Our first trip 2 years ago was to Barcelona. This was something in her heart that she wanted to try. We didn't know if it would work. We promised transformation and we delivered transformation. And so I'm in learning mode. It was this dance I would do to show up as Danita and not try to be a cheap carbon copy of Lisa, right? Because she's a big personality. We traveled around the world doing these women retreats. And what we got out of it was not only did they transform their life, but they also built a community of, as I call it, soul sisters, right? For life. The connection was just so delicious. I had no idea that she had me on these trips to prep me for such a day as today. And today this year she's asked for me to do her personal development. Well, now it's virtual workshops. It's going to be in person, but then it's virtual. Also teaching her modules to her students. And I've never done module teaching. I have certainty in the skill set, but these are all new platforms for me, from no visibility on social media to getting 67,000 comments when I'm live with her. So the visibility taking these has been so exponential. All my handles have blown up. She says, I can't keep you a secret anymore. And now you're going to be exposed. And so you can imagine the trigger dance I was doing behind the black curtain of OMG. And I remember my coach, before we went live for this 3-day event, he said, you've been invited on this playground for your essence. Just show up as you. When we show up as us, and so my personality doesn't change from this interview to anywhere. I'm pretty consistent. And that was a big lesson for me. So I feel like I climbed Mount Everest. There was just a sense of peace that said there was no turning back because they were depending on me. I just showed up and we had a blast. And everything after that, podcasts, public speaking, one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world asked me to speak. I said, why, yes. You asked me on your podcast, I go, why, yes. Now, this is a girl that doesn't like visibility or wasn't used to it, especially on social media stages, let alone radio, right? And here I am. And the biggest lesson I learned from that was to trust that I got me. I got me from my essence. I got Danita for knowing who I am. And the uniqueness of me is why people ask. So this has been a huge, huge learning lesson. Tons of resistance because it's unfamiliar, right?
Exciting. Lovely. I appreciate you so much, and I appreciate this conversation so much.
No, but just thank you so much, Christine. This has been fun. It's been memorable. You've been on the journey with me, sis, and I'm forever thankful. Congratulations on your podcast and your show, and it was my honor to be a guest.
It's been a delight having you, Danita. Thank you. This is Danita Sajous. You can find her at Danita, Danita, Sajous, Sajous.com. Find her on Facebook, Real Talk with Danita.